Hey ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another video. So this particular video was actually inspired by someone that just added me on Facebook again, okay? And this kind of, when he added me on Facebook, it brought back old memories. And on some occasions or in certain instances, I don't like to go back to my past or even think about it, okay, because it was difficult, okay, and quite painful. And so when he added me, some of those memories came back, especially that had to do with his dad. Okay, guys, I don't remember if I talked about this. I think I did already talk about this. Oh yeah, I did. But anyways, this guy, he was like my brother, basically, okay? He was like another brother to me. And when it comes to him in particular, I don't have any bad memories, really, okay? Because in fact, he was much closer to me than my real brother was, So he was like my brother, basically, in that sense. We got along better than I got along with him better than with my original brother or blood brother, and our personalities were much more compatible, basically, okay? And so yeah, and that's that's the irony, right? But anyways, unfortunately, when we lived with and the reason why I'm gonna bring this up, okay, is because just to give you guys an example, okay, of what I'm going to discuss in this video. And hopefully this will help you, some of you understand, and also heal your own trauma, okay? So let's go back to my family dynamics, right? As you guys know, my mom, when she was in Latvia, when I was younger, when I was a child, basically, right? She left to America, right? And so she, of course, she just carelessly asked a friend of hers who was much, much younger than her to look after us, okay? Me and my brother. And so she left us with this family, with a family of strangers, basically. She knew nothing about them. And she left us for 5 years. And it was only supposed to be for a few months. But then it ended up being like 5 years or so, okay? And so it was a long time, right? But anyway, so it was an interesting experience because I got to experience watching another family dynamics, okay? And learning from it too. And not only that, but I think this woman that we were with, she was a codependent, okay? And she was she was with a narcissist, potentially psychopath, who abused their family, okay? He abused his family, and we got to have the front row seats to that, unfortunately, as kids, but not only that, but of course he abused us too, okay? But not physically, emotionally, right? Mentally. And of course, as you guys know, this is the worst kind of abuse, okay? And so there's that, right? My mom had no idea that he was even in the family because she didn't know anything about this family. She basically just carelessly, as she pretty much always did, she, most things that she did were very careless, and at one point she, like when I was around 18, I think, she almost left me in Paris, okay? And the reason being is because she didn't check, I needed documents and she didn't check that. And when she was about to get on the plane, she's like, oh yeah, my daughter is coming with me. And I'm like, no mom, I need my own documents. And she's like, well, I don't have them. No, my daughter is coming with me, And so, anyways, let's just say we had to race to the embassy center and rebook our flights and everything, right? So it was very chaotic, okay? And things like that happened over and over and over again with my mom, okay? But anyway, so let's just go back to the story that I was saying, right? Anyway, so the relationship dynamic, right? And I'm also going to mention we did have, like I said, right? I had someone like a brother, right? Because we ended up getting closer than I ended up getting closer to him than to my own brother, okay? Based on our personalities, okay? And so there was that, right? But there was also the fact that there was a girl in the family too. I don't remember too much about the girl. I only got to know her a little bit more later on as we got older, right? And I came back to Latvia. Okay, and so I don't remember seeing her too much in my childhood for some reason. I don't know why. Okay, I don't have too many memories of her for some reason. Maybe she was gone for a lot of the time, you know. But I from what I recall, she was barely ever home. Okay, and she was older, right? And so maybe that's why, I don't know. And like I said, our family dynamics with them for the 4 or 5 years was extremely chaotic, okay, and extremely unhealthy, okay, to watch for young children, right? And so, and there was, like I said, the dynamic was this, right? Um, there was the psychopath, narcissist, drunk, right? Definitely a drunk. He was a drunk, a huge drunk. He used to go to this place with me, taking me there with him to get his vodka, okay? And that was terrible. And I liked going there because they gave me candy there, okay? But yeah, uh, you know, and so there was that, right? But the family dynamic was very toxic, okay? So there was him, right? And there was the woman, right? She was a codependent. I would say she was a good woman for the most part. But guys, I will also tell you in this particular video how she was enabling him. Um, she continued the vicious cycle that she was in, and that affected her children and us too, okay? And I will tell you why she was almost just as evil as he is at the end of the day, okay? Even though it didn't seem like it, okay? I would say for the most part she was kind in many ways too, okay? So she wasn't evil like him, okay? She was always kind to us. I would say that she was very weak minded, and she had a very hard time standing up for anyone, for us, for herself, okay? And so he beat her all the time. And so her son eventually, of course, he got hit too, okay? Unfortunately, he got beat up. And when he got older, they started serious fights. And the son was very brave, you know. He was very courageous. That's what I loved about him. He was very fearless. He started defending his mama, you know, and he started standing up for her and getting involved once again in those fights because he felt like he had to, right? He couldn't just stand there watching his dad beating up his mom, right? So he would get involved. He would start going against his dad, beating him up also, and they would get into fights, and it was terrible to watch. To be honest with you guys, as much as my memory was affected, right, by the trauma, I can still remember this, okay? And it was terrible. it was really, really terrible, you know. But here's the thing, right? This woman, she didn't know it, okay? But she was stuck, but she was stuck in an abusive relationship with him, okay? So after these fights, he would disappear for a few days, and those were my favorite times, guys. I was like, I knew that whenever they would have a fight, and I knew they were coming, I knew that he was going to be gone for a few days, you know? And that's exactly what happened. So I was happy. As crazy as it sounds, it's not that I was happy about the fight, right? But I was happy that he would be gone afterwards, because I knew I could already spot the pattern, you know, them fighting would equal to him leaving, right? So I knew that was coming, and I was happy about that, you know. And so he would of course leave, right? And of course after a while she would take him back, right? He would love bomb her again, right? And she would take him back, you know. And so I couldn't understand why on earth she would take him back after these, you know, fights. But once again, guys, the relationship between a narcissist or a psychopath and you know, the empath, right? She was very empathic, by the way. She was definitely an empath. She just didn't know her power. She never stood up for herself. She was and she, you know, she didn't stand up for her children either, okay? And so guys, this woman, you know, she got to she never got out of that toxic cycle, okay guys? Eventually, okay, and I think it's karma, you know, to go back to the spiritual side of this, right? Never harm a chosen one, because, and which he did do to us, right? And me, right? As you will get your karma. And guys, eventually he did get his karma. He got killed, you know, just like my mom. You know, so anyone that abuses a chosen one will get their karma. They're going to get killed, or they're going to really, they're going to suffer, basically, you know. And in the sense, they did this to themselves, you know. Even if, well, yeah, he was doing it consciously, right? But anyways, so this guy, he ended up harming a lot of people, a lot. But this woman, unfortunately, she because she was herself, she was in an illusion, right? She created illusions about him loving her, perhaps, right? Because this is what you do with a narcissist. In a narcissistic relationship, you don't choose to, first of all, you fall in love with the illusion, right? Because they mirror you, right? So they pretend to be just like you. So you fall in love with yourself. And then you cling to that image, right? You cling to that image without letting go of it, without really seeing the reality for what it is, right? So she never saw the reality for what it was. She never, she idolized him, okay? And so she would always choose to see the good side, right? And so this is where the empaths go wrong too. Because they're so positive, right? And because they always choose to see the good side of people, this is where this gets them, okay? Instead of seeing people for what they truly are, and he was a monster in this case, right? She chose to see his good side. And of course, everyone has a good side, right? And so because she chose to see his good side, right, she also lied to us too, right? And so by doing that, right, you actually kind of, in a sense, you discount the hurt that people do to that was done to you, right? She was basically later on, years later, when we were talking or when we were together, she would always bring him up, you know, and he was already dead, right? But she would bring up him and his good side, okay? While completely discounting the bad side that happened, while completely discounting all the evil that he did, which was mostly evil. Relationship with him was mostly evil. It was about, you know, 75% evil, and maybe the rest, everything was okay, right? So she would always bring up this 10%, right, or this 15%, while discounting everything else, which really pissed me off, okay? Because in a sense, she was perpetuating this delusion that she had of him being good, right? Of him being kind, of him being a decent person. So in that sense, she was evil too, although she didn't recognize what she was doing. Once again, she was, by perpetuating the illusion, right? She was being, in a sense, evil, right? She was saying that she was still siding with him, right? Because she chose to see the good, okay? And also, right, to go back to the way that people feel when you do this. What I felt like, I felt anger. I felt pissed off. I felt like my bad experiences were ignored. The abuse was ignored, like it was not there. That's how I felt when she would just bring up the good side. And so I would say, like, wait a minute, you know, but don't you remember this and that and that. And it's like she's like, oh, forgive him, you know. So basically, the abuse and all the bad that happened was discounted. And that's how, you know, and the, I would say the victim, right, or the victims, as we all were, right, in this sense, we ended up feeling left, you know, as if our feelings didn't matter, as if the bad experiences were never there, you know. And so this is in a sense is what makes the empath or the codependent evil, okay? Because they discount the bad, okay? Because they do this in their own heads too. This is their way of coping, right? This was their way of coping too. And so, and you guys, if he never died, I bet you she would stay in that relationship suffering, okay? And putting her children through the same, although the children were older, right? But still, you know, this is what happens, right? When you continue, when you choose to continue to stay in that vicious cycle of abuse, okay? If there are children involved, you're being evil, okay? You're being evil because you're choosing to ignore the monster that the abuser is, right? And by ignoring that, you're putting others in danger, you're putting others at risk, you're putting your own children at risk, and even children that are not your own, as in the case with us, right? And so I don't know how many, you know, I don't know how many of you guys had this happen to you, right? Where you ended up living with another family, right? I don't think that's very common. But yeah, guys, this is what happened to us, you know, and it was an interesting experience, guys. Like, I can't say it was all bad, okay, because it wasn't, but it was definitely torture staying with him, you know. So when my mom finally came, right, and to take us, right, as we were getting on the plane, everyone was crying, right, and like upset, and to be honest with you, because of the amount of the abuse that he put us through, I was like laughing on the inside, you know. I wasn't even sad to go, like, and I couldn't even pretend, because I'm the kind of a person that doesn't really pretend, you know. So I was just like, you know, very neutral, you know, and I wasn't crying, you know, and because, like I said, because of what happened, you know. So I was really glad to be out of this guy's hair, you know, because he was very abusive, and watching another family go through that was just very brutal, guys, you know. and yeah. And once again, this lady, she was evil because she lived in unconscious delusions, okay? Instead of seeing the truth, instead of seeing the reality, right? So you guys, I guess to end this video, right, I want to say that your delusions could be hurting a lot of people. Your delusions about your situation, your work situation, your relationships, you know, even about yourself, okay? They could be hurting you, okay? And so by actually, you know, you need to find the strength that's within you, right? To finally see the truth, to finally accept it. That's the only way to free yourself, okay? It's the only way to free yourself from anything, okay? And yes, it is going to be very painful, okay? Very painful, and it's not easy. It takes a very strong person to do that. But once you do that, you set yourself, and often you set others free too. Okay, so thank you so much for watching, guys. Stay tuned for more videos. Please subscribe if you haven't already, okay? Check out all of my courses, check out all of my books. I have some kids' books, children's books, and I have a lot of audios on hypnotherapy as well. So if you're looking for a one-on-one hypnotherapy session, then feel free to email me, okay? All right, bye-bye.